A random weirdo, yes, that's actually their username, asked me if I could break down my running schedule a little bit. They've been having a hard time getting enough like road work done to feel like they're making a lot of progress. I feel like I need to preface this by saying that running is not the only thing that I do. Running is a part of what I do. The second thing I want to say is I'm not the best runner. Right? As a father of 4, how do I find the time to run? Too long didn't watch is I do my speed work on Saturdays. I do a long, slow recovery run with my kids on Sundays. On Wednesdays, I do something called 100 ups. It's a running drill where you just stand in place and lift your legs up. And then on Thursdays, I alternate between lactate threshold and aerobic threshold. I realized running was a weakness for me and I wanted to work on it. So I started doing it 1 time a week. This run is a speed workout around my mile pace, 15 to 25 minutes most days. I do this one on Saturday. I wake up at my normal time, so it's still early. I go to the gym, get my workout in, and then I go and get my track workout in on my way home. That saves me on warming up because I work on posterior and my hips and stuff beforehand. 2 workouts that you can do that are examples of this is workout A, 6 400-meter runs at your 1 mile pace or faster, followed by 1 minute of rest. The goal is for each interval to be faster than the one before. Your final one's gonna be an all-out 400. B is 4 rounds, 400 meters at your mile pace, directly into a 100-meter sprint, followed by 90 seconds of rest before you repeat it. I started making some progress, and I realized that my shins and my calves and ankles and all that, like those would stay incredibly sore. The next thing I did was I added in a bunch of ankle work into my workouts. So 2 different times in a week, I use tibialis raises. I use a mixture of straight leg calf raises and knee over toe calf raises or bent knee calf raises. I realized like, hey, as I started seeing improvements with my ankles, being able to take the beating from that Saturday sprint or Saturday speed work, I realized I was missing like a long, slow, steady pace. I started learning about 80-20 running and that most of your work should be at a slow pace according to that principle. So on Sundays, that's where the invention of our father-son fun run comes in. So we just run at their pace. It was a great way to kind of stack a bunch of things I wanted to do together. It's a long, fun run. We do it on the trail, so it's easy on the joints. It's also great for building stability in the ankles and all that. It's been a wonder for that. It's fun because it's not just running around a track. It's not just a flat ground. So there's some variety there. It gets us into nature, which is super good for you. And it got me to spend more time with my kids, which is awesome. You know, we have great talks. I try to post about that in my videos, some of the conversations that we have. So that one is gonna be at like your marathon or longer pace, something you could maybe even hold for 100 miles, right? Like a 24-hour pace. When we started that, we started with like a 20-minute run, and then we've built up to a mile. We built up past a mile, but I feel like a mile is a really effective time. My kids kind of get frustrated when we're going for like 75 minutes. That one's just about recovery. It's about getting out, having fun, being there with your kids. You could totally do this with a dog. You could do it with a friend. I would say try to do it unplugged. Don't do this one with music. Get in touch with your breathing and your pacing, and it's great for that. After those 3 things, the next thing I added in is something to improve my running mechanics. Form is everything. I think it's super important that we practice actually running better versus just getting a bunch of running in. The last thing you want to do is put a bunch of miles on a heel strike. Improving your running form is going to go a really, really long ways, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. After reading Born to Run 2, I got the idea to incorporate called 100 ups. Basically what they look like is your feet are on 2 lines and you just raise your leg, raise your other leg. So it's like a hip flexor lift. After you do 100 of them, you then check your feet and see like, hey, are your feet still on those lines that were underneath your shoulders? You can do it where you drop your foot down and you're kind of like running in place 1 step at a time. In the book, they talked about how there was this person way long ago that used to work in a pharmacy. He was a recreational competitor. He ended up winning tons of like running events, even though he wasn't able to actually run for, I think it was over a year. From the 100 ups though, their mile time was like 4.5 minutes. So I figured if it was good enough for a 4.5 minute mile, it was probably good enough for me. I do that on Wednesdays. I'll try to get 10 minutes of that in. You can totally do that wherever. You don't have to warm up for that. The last piece that I've been adding is on Thursdays, I'm gonna alternate. 1 week is gonna be lactate threshold, and then the next week is gonna be aerobic threshold. The 2 different ways that's gonna look is Lactate threshold is gonna be about a half hour, and it's gonna be run at a pace that you could hold for 45 to 60 minutes. So this is gonna be like your 10K pace, if you know what that is. I do it on the same trail that we do our father-son run. I love the trail. It's got some gravel on it. It's got a little bit of hills, curves. I'm not a huge fan of just running on concrete. It just doesn't feel right to me. So I try to run on trails. It's a lot more fun. The other is the aerobic threshold. So for this is gonna be a longer and longer run. I'm just trying to build up some extra time. This is almost like more of that 80-20 where it's gonna be pretty easy. It's definitely gonna be harder than our father-son run pace, like my marathon pace or a 24-hour race pace. My plan on this one is I'm gonna add probably half a K, so 500 meters every time I do it, which is gonna be every other week. That's my current running schedule. If you all have any other questions about any other schedules or how the whole thing looks, a video is gonna come on my entire training program, my hybrid program that I'm using to get better at marathons, triathlons, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, gymnastics, pretty much everything. And the best part is how to do it all pain-free. If you have any specific questions, leave it down in the comments. I'd love to make a video to help you out. If you need help with what your paces should be, shoot me a comment of what your mile time is, and I can break down what your paces should be for some of those other workouts. That's it. Have fun training.